Dear audience, today our esteemed guest is Liaquat Ali Khan. He is currently pursuing his research at Kashmir University from Islam Studies. His area of research is Islamic psychology. His topic of the research is the comparative study of the two scholars. The major concern of his research is to discuss the conventions, conventional psychology and the Islamic psychology, making the comparison between two disciplines. And he's trying to point out the drawbacks of the conventional psychology, that it replaces the spirituality, mostly focusing on the different things instead of focusing on the spiritual aspect of the human body. That I would like to ask some questions from him regarding this area of research, and what are the things that he is trying to distinguish and point out, that that are that are counter to the Islamic psychology, or we can say that that are contradictory at some point, both of the disciplines. Let's have the discussion with this person. And I would like to ask this person, first of all, I am highly thankful to this person that he has given us his precious time. And it's a great pleasure for me. And he had graced us with his presence. Hello, Liaquat. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am very thankful to you that you have given me opportunity to explore my area in the form of some questions. First question that you have posed, some differences between the Islamic psychology and Western psychology. There is always a conflict between the two worldviews. One is the worldview which is based on the divine sources, and the second worldview that which is based on the human intellect. So Islamic psychology is defined as the psychology that which is based on the sources of Islam, that we can infer the different aspects of human behavior through the lens of Quran and Hadith, and the sources of the early Muslim scholars like Imam Ghazali, Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, and there are so many scholars, Ibn Sina, and so many other scholars who discuss it a lot about the Islamic psychology. And when we talk about the differences between the Islamic psychology and the Western psychology, first difference is that Western psychology is based on the empirical studies of the scholars, of the psychologists who are from the West, and there is some cultural differences, and my field is just focused on to induce the indigenous psychologies that which are relevant to the particular geographical area. For example, if we can say that the Americanization of psychology, that it due to colonization around the world, Americans disseminate this knowledge of psychology. They generalize their findings after experimenting on animals, pigeons, and they apply these principles on the humans. And when we talk about the behaviorism school of thought, where they compare the humans with the animals, they say that their behavior is just linked with the behavior of the animals. They induced the concepts like the positive negative reinforcement, and these concepts were early discussed by the Imam Ghazali and Ikhwanul Safa. These were scholars who discussed these concepts. I mean to say that here there is the legacy of the Muslim scholars that which is prevalent in this era to maintain their historicity with this conventional psychology. They have worked a lot. And the second one point is that acculturation, that is very much difficult for those individuals who are residing in the west, and that psychology is affected by the psychology which is generated there, which genesis of the psychology in that culture is different. When the Muslims migrate from the other eastern countries to migrate there, and uh, they they were compelled to get the sessions from the western psychologists, and during that very course of time their therapies could not become compatible with the sessions with the sessions of those clients, because they were from the different cultures. And when the two cultures, when there is a conflict between the two cultures, then the psychology of that area will not work there. So my context is that western psychology and the Islamic psychology are the two conflicting paradigms. For example, you talked about they drifted out spirituality from their sessions. Yes, they drifted, but the concept of spirituality in Islam is different from the concept of spirituality in Islam. For example, I am quoting here Future of an Illusion, written by a book by Sigmund Freud. He captures the notion of religion in a different way. He said that religion is an illusion. Another scholar, American psychiatrist Scott Peck, who wrote a book, A Road Less Traveled, he says that in that book, Malik Badri quoted this book in the session where a conference was held in South Africa. Islamic Medical Council Association was there. He presented their paper, and in this session, he tell that the Scott Peck says that the spirituality of a client can be induced, can be elevated after when a practitioner make a sexual contact with the client. This is the some kind of spirituality. If someone claim that the Western psychology has not figured out the figured out spirituality from their context, no. But spirituality, that which is discussed in Islam, something different. So we can say that the spirituality without religion is impossible in the Islam. So there is the concept of spirituality in West that is very different from the context of the Islam.
Thank you, Liaquat. Thank you very much that you have pointed out the some difference between the Islamic psychology and the Western psychology in a lucid and exquisite way. And one more question that I want to ask you: is it possible that the as you talked about the Americanization of the psychology, modern day is it possible that Islamization of the psychology?
Yes, Islamization of psychology it was a big plan that which was started by early Muslim scholars, just as Imam Ghazali or so other scholars. In contemporary, in 21st century, Ismail Raji al-Faruqi and other scholars from the Malaysia, Indonesia, they started the Islamization of psychology. But due to some reasons, the term Islamization is not too much immune. It not so much this term becomes susceptible for the scholars of the West. And the alternative which that these scholars proposed, that was the integration approach, where what the scholars do that when there is some areas in Western psychology and there's some areas in the Islamic psychology, they integrated these two areas to make the compatibility between the two areas, that which can become the acceptable in the West. And this approach, integration approach, is alhamdulillah that it is growing, it is disseminating day to day in the West. This approach was developed by the Professor Ghulam Hussain Rasool. He's the scholar that which I'm studying the works of this scholar, and he wrote a lot about it. Despite of Malik Badri, he make a much criticism on the Western psychology, due to which other scholars become very conscious about the critique, and time to time, when the days are very, when a time will come, and this integration approach will be reached at its peak, where we can develop our own indigenous psychology, that we can call it the Islamic psychology. And around there are the 90 associations around the world which are working towards the Islamization of psychology in the form of Islamic psychology.
Yeah, you have pointed out in a very lucid way these things, and as you talked about in one of the argument that you have proposed it, that there's a difference between the spiritualities in different religions. I would like to ask you that what is the concept of spirituality from the in the Western worldview, and what is the concept of spirituality in Islam? And as you pointed out, that Sigmund Freud had figured out the concept of spirituality in his book
Future of an
Future
Illusion.
of an Illusion, and he called the religion as a mirage, as an illusion for the people. I would like to ask you deliberate some time on this issue to give some leisure points regarding this issue.
Yes, I will. I have earlier in the session, I have discussed the concept of spirituality. For spirituality is, in Islamic perspective, we can say that spirit, that means the ruh, that it is the external force outside the body. The external force we mean, we say here, and it's the divine in nature. Yes, that is divine in nature. That is divine in nature, and spirituality is a entity that which controls the emotions of an individual in Islamic perspective. And when we talk about the spirituality in West, that they also said it is external force, but they say that this spirituality helps an individual to search the meaning of life. And here we can say also that the spirituality in Islam, where a person can search for the meaning of life, but their spirituality is out of the context from the concept of God. They can say that a man can be spiritual without God. But here in Islam, we cannot separate the religion and spirituality from each other. Then in West, they posit that there is a spirituality without religion. That is impossible, that we can say that we can integrate the spirituality, concept of spirituality in the psychology, that can help us to help us to combat the psychological problems. But the concept of spirituality in Islam, that is very much compatible with the individuals from the Muslim population, that there is a concept of ruh, fitra, and other kind of constructs in Islamic psychology, that which help an individual to combat the psychological problems.
Yeah, as you know that in the Western world, there used to be a different discussions regarding the different issues. And last time I was watching in the one of the heated debate on the topic that God is dead, death of the God. It's one of the heated debate that is mostly discussed in the West, and at the different centers the people are discussing and posing their arguments, and pointing their giving their point of views. Do you think that as the whole essence of the God is that it means that the spirituality is fading away from the from our lives? That's why that these discussions are happening in the Western world. This is the thing that I think that that the West has lost its the essence of the spirituality when they have drifted out the concept of God from this spiritual from the concept of from the concept of spirituality. Thank you. It was a nice discussion with you, and it was my pleasure with you. And have a nice day.